at my 6. What a beautiful crepe myrtle, no? Planted these things, 3 of them here on this tree line about 3 years ago, and they're really starting to bloom. As you can see, try to trim my hair up a bit. Not that I can't afford a haircut. Dearly usually does it. I just don't have time to go get one. Burning these here candles at both ends, trying to finish up October Nights Part 2. 31 more tales for the Halloween season, in time for Halloween. Whew. While spending time in a wood shop, making those really awesome homemade, handmade, wood-made, from wood mostly here on the Homestead, Halloween decorations. Check those out in our Etsy store. So we've got a thunderstorm coming, and it's very much welcome because it is literally like 95 degrees right now. The only reason I'm out here is because we've got the cloud cover associated with the storm. Otherwise, I'd be inside hiding from the heat. And we've had some really crazy things happen around here during storms, during weather events. And this is why I always go high, folks. I'm telling you, you want to know where the veil grows thin, go to high ground, go to where field and forest meet, do it during weather events, especially where there's moisture or water involved. It's like, I don't know if it's portals, if it's veils. I don't know. We're going to have a look here in a minute. Got some really good stories for you. Gnats everywhere. Okay, so I know you're so frustrated right now because we're 2 minutes into this video and about 250 of you have tried to tell me in the comments section that I'm going to burn in hell, and what good is it to inherit the world if your soul be lost, and out here in that thunderstorm, lightning's going to strike you after what you just said there in their title. Huh, isn't it frustrating when you can't just read a title and then go read the first 2 or 3 comments and then put in your 2 cents and then click away and go somewhere else and act like you're a content subject matter expert? Okay, I'm going to get to that. But I've got a couple really neat stories for you first. The first one, it was sent to us from a viewer. I'm going to read it word for word because it's an amazing story. And, I never talk about politics or religion on the channel, but I am going to say this about religion. This is one of the things that frustrates me so much about religion. I have my views. They are what they are. I don't push them on anybody. And I don't let others push theirs on me after having been brought up in a house where one care provider was a Catholic and the other care provider was a Protestant. And I had to listen to that my whole childhood and have both pushed on me. It's just a total turnoff for me. Not to mention I fought in the holy wars in the Middle East. So anyway, this is what... Look, I don't care what you are. Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Jewish, agnostic, atheist. I don't care. You know who I prefer? And I'm not one, but agnostic. I love those people. They just don't care, man. They'd rather talk about other things. But here's something I've noticed about not all, but a lot of atheists. They love to bash people of faith, but particularly Christians. And I don't know, well, I do know why this is. It's because that's kind of a non-protective group. See, they know that if they, say, bashed people of Jewish faith and their beliefs, well, they'd be called anti-Semitic. And man, you get locked under the jail for that, as you should. Okay? If they bash other non-Christian faiths, same thing, locked under the jail. But for some reason, at least in most societies around the world, it's still okay to bash Christians. I know atheists who will admire people of non-Christian faiths and from different cultures and talk about the beauty of their strength and their faith and their culture and how, they might not have much because they're a poor people, but they have pride, which it's funny. They're allowed to be proud of their nation, but better not do that here. In the U.S. and they even though these atheists don't believe in these people's religious views, they think it's wonderful how strong they are in their faith, unless if they're a Christian. And it's okay to go after them and tell them how ignorant they are and say stuff like, "What? Do you believe in Jesus Christ? Are you crazy? Seriously? Oh, look at that. Took almost 5 minutes. Bam, 5 minute mark right there. Now you finally understand the title." I don't care what faith you follow. I will never bash your faith. That's your business, not mine. And it takes somebody who's very insecure to bash anybody else's beliefs. Seriously. Something I never understood about these types. And if you're atheist, that's fine, as long as you're leaving me alone. But it amazes me, these people that want to disprove Christianity so much, because they're saying, you can't prove that. You can't prove that Jesus Christ came back to earth as the Son of God, or was sent to earth as the Son of God and died so all shall be forgiven. You can't even prove that there's a God. How do you prove there's not? I mean, So anyway, we're up here in the woods, and I've been rambling. That's what I do. And for you 200, listen, the 200 people that came here to tell me I'm going to hell, they've already left because they see there's no comment section. I'm going to talk to you about that here in a minute. And that's not for me. Okay, all that crap, I bet you know, okay, my loyal followers who watch the entire videos, you get me, you know me, I'm a tongue-in-cheek kind of guy. This is for you guys who are sending in these stories. They're piling up. I can't do 2 videos a day. I actually got invited to a cookout this evening, and I'm going to. So that's why I'm doing this kind of early. But I will get to them. This one came in a week ago, but I'm finally getting around to sharing it. Now, I'm in the woods, so get my 6, okay? All right, listen. Some of our viewers who have sent in stories have found out that some of our other viewers are very mean, and they will make fun of you, and they will call you names. If you're going to send in a story for me to share and read on the channel, I welcome it. But you need to think long and hard if you want to have your name attached to it. If you don't have thick skin, you might prefer that I share your story anonymously, okay? Which I will. Just keep that in mind, okay? All right, so here we go. Story from a viewer. Hi, Kevin. I really enjoy your channel. I've had gifts my whole life. I don't like them. They're so unpredictable. I saw my mother's death 2 years before she died. I saw exactly her painful death in a vision that scared me. I was almost 10 at the time. Sorry you lost your mother at a young age. There's gnats everywhere. Also, another event took place that year. This is true. I very rarely share what happened to me because it still to this day at age 54 gives me chills. I was the kid who hated going to bed at night. I had a fear of the dark because the dark always held faces and visions for me. Mom would leave the hall light on for me at nights to ease my anxiety. My room light was left on also at night. One night, I was really anxious and didn't know why. Mom sent me to bed. I sat on the end of my bed with lights on and my Barbies ready to play. LOL. Light on, remember? All of a sudden, hallway went black. My room went black. I started yelling for Mom to turn the lights back on, anxiety twanging. No answer from anyone. I was frozen at the end of my bed. All of a sudden, a light blew up so bright it was blinding. To this day, I have not seen a light like that again. I was frozen in place. I had a whoosh of peace hit me. I'm here to tell you, a figure walks into my room from that light, walks to the end of my bed. I could not see the face, for the light was extremely blinding. This figure raises his hands, and his hands had holes in his palms. I knew who it was. He never said a word, just held out his arms toward me. I was astounded, shocked, excited, and overwhelmed. He turned, walked out. The love that was in that moment I cannot explain. I was up the rest of the night shaking. Morning came. Mom walks in and stops. She says, "What happens in here? What happened in here?" She looked at me and said, "This room is different." So I told her, fearing I would get laughed at. She looked in my eyes and said, "You are telling the truth." We didn't know what it meant. However, we were given a clue later that day after school. Coming home on the bus approaches our neighborhood. My mom's best friend is running and screaming at the bus to stop. She climbs on the bus and yells, "I need Stephanie," the submitter of this story. Her house is burning down. I looked out the window and OMG, the fire rising up was scary. The house was a total loss, all except for my room. No water pockets in the ceiling from the firemen in my room at all. And the firemen were scratching their heads because they know a burnt house smells awful. But my room had a sweet smell no one could identify. No smell of fire in my room either. House is gone. All but stands is my room. Even the brick outside my room on the house was not touched by fire. A fireman also fell into the heart of the fire from the roof. He miraculously somehow survived with 80% of his body burned. He went back to fighting fires once able. The fire started in the attic. Dad had hired a company to put insulation in the attic. The installer was a smoker. His truck caught fire on leaving our house. The other part is my mother was asleep in the living room on the couch when the fire started. A UPS driver going by on his route saw the fire on the roof and stopped and went in and got my mom out. If not for the UPS driver, Mom would not have lived through that fire. That night before took on a meaning that the Lord's hands were on my life and on my family that day. Our house was rebuilt. My room never lost that sweet smell from my heavenly visitor. I have escaped death 6 times in my life where I should have been dead. Each time I was given spiritual reminders of the Lord's hands on my life. I have a few tales to tell that are truth in my life. Please don't laugh at this event. It happened. Our house caught fire 3 times over 2 days, never touching my room. My mother, a fireman, and a UPS driver knew they were part of a miraculous event. And the night before, I know was real and still see it today like it was yesterday. You can share this if you like. I also have a Bigfoot sighting event. That was crazy. My dad, my uncle, and I were up in the Colorado mountains, walking trails and enjoying nature. All of a sudden, it got really quiet, eerily quiet. Dad and my uncle, swatting a mosquito off my leg and dropped the paper, excuse me for a second. Okay, Dad and my uncle were acting nervous. I was 9 at the time. We kept walking slowly. My uncle was whittling a whistle out of a plant he found for me. He gave it to me and told me to start blowing it and play music. So being a kid, I did just that. That was fun. We walked a little further and I stopped. There was this thing behind a tree, hairy, very tall and huge, just standing on 2 feet behind the tree. I said, "Hey Dad, what's that?" My dad and my uncle grabbed me and took off a different direction. We got back to my uncle's cabin, which he built at the foot of a mountain, and I asked again, what was that behind the tree? My dad and uncle just cleared their throats and said, "Oh, just a bear." I said, "Bears are that tall?" "Don't worry about it, kid," they said, and they went in the cabin, changing the subject. Years later, I asked Dad about that again. It's coming. Bear? It was a bear. He didn't want to talk about it. I'm here to tell you that was no freaking bear. The smell that came from behind that tree was awful. My dad was 6 feet tall. That thing made almost 2 of him in height. It was watching us. I know what I saw then, and I know today what I saw. I have other experiences I can share, but I'll do so later. Please don't make fun of me, she says again. I rarely tell my experiences. These really happened. I see things and feel things. I also get visions at times that have come true. I hope you read this and it helps you see and understand that things are seen and experienced that have no science behind them. Stephanie R. Stephanie R., thank you for your stories. I'm sorry that it's taken me almost a week to get to them. I will never make fun of you or anybody else who ever turns in these stories. Vertically challenged individuals who live under bridges and who are miserable and hate their lives will. That's the real reason why, here in the last couple of days, I have turned off the comment section. Listen, this is not permanent. This is temporary. I have so much stuff going on in my life right now, finishing up this book, October Nights Part 2. If you haven't read Part 1, you got to. You can get it on Amazon and Kindle or print, or you can get it from our Etsy store, and I'll autograph it for you before I send it out. The links to both places are in the description box below. I literally am going on 4 to 5 hours of sleep. I don't have time to go through and clean up the comment section right now. I don't care about those who insult me. You know this. If you've followed this channel for any period of time, I've got thick skin. I come from a very toxic background where my skin was turned to leather at an early age. I've fought in war. I've had people try to kill me for an extended period of time. I've had people try to kidnap me and or my son for ransom in Mindanao multiple times. People coming on here from mommy's basement, or there was some lightning. Whoever's paying the rent or mortgage's basement, saying, I don't care. If you're saying about me, but you're not going to come on here and say it about these folks. These folks are winners. These are people who do something with their lives. Therefore, they have experiences to share. They want to contribute to the conversation, not detract from it. Listen, it's not going to be permanent as far as the comment section being off, but it is going to be temporary until I can get to a point to where I can go through and weed out the dirt bags. Okay. And again, so if you submit your story, you know, and I'm not saying you're weak or that you have thin skin, you don't work in social media. If you knew the dozens of times a day I have to hear, how much did I pay for my wife? How much did it cost to have her mailed to the U.S.? Now, it's funny because if I were to talk about that kind of stuff as a content creator, I'd get shot down if I talked about it in a way differently than the way I just did. But man, it's as far as people who view content and comment to the creators, y'all can say anything, and y'all do. Again, if you're in the business of social media, the gutter of the internet, as Lady Gaga calls it, you're used to it. But if you're not, this is you with your story. Be prepared to be ridiculed if I'm not there to police the comment section. And again, I can't, finishing up this book, and that's why I've turned the comments off for now. Okay, now moving on. Got a couple more stories for you, and I need to get inside before I get the skies dumped on me. And isn't it amazing how if you actually take the time to watch the videos anyway, you know, people are always like, you do this for clicks. Oh, this is just a homeowner doing this for clicks. Let me tell you something about clicks. Do you know that if I make a video that's 20 minutes long and it only gets 5 or 10,000 views, but it's my 5 to 10,000 loyal heart and soul of my channel fan base that watch that video in its entirety, that video will actually generate far more revenues for me in my bank account that no, I'm not going all the way to laughing. Who goes to the bank anymore, brah? I have all my checks electronically deposited like everybody else. It's 2022. Okay? But let's say I make a video that goes semi-viral. It gets 3 or 4 million views. And it's one of those types like that freaking corny old crackhead or whatever he is around here, rolls down the hill every now and then, a couple times a year. 3 or 4 million views. People come onto that video just long enough to insult the content creator in the comment section or insult other people who have left comments about what they think he, she, it, or they is, and then they're gone. They're on that video less than a minute. That video will literally generate less revenues with 1 million views like that than a quality content video that only gets 10,000 views but is watched for a full half an hour, because that happens to be how long it is. That's a true story. Many of you watching are content creators and you know this. If you don't believe me, Google it. So I don't care. I'm hoping that while the comment section is turned off for a while, those deadbeats go on and find some. I know it worked for Yahoo. They turned their comment section off for 6 months and it thinned out. It got rid of the garbage. And now they've turned it back on, and the people that come are constructive. They contribute to the conversation. So we're kind of doing the same thing here for now, temporarily, because I want to make it a safe place for people like Stephanie R., who just shared her experiences, to come and share their experiences, okay? I'm going to share a couple more for you. These are from Charlene Robinson, okay? Hi, Kevin. A couple of stories you may find interesting. I'm a baby boomer, 71 years old with about 70 more to go. That's my example. 71, the point I'm trying to make, she's 71. She's looking forward to another 70 years. She's not sitting around waiting to die, looking to see if she sees her own name in the obituaries. This woman is a winner, okay? A winner. Okay, and just on an aside, this is a great way to overcome those folks who want to embarrass you. Just keep going on about your business and outlive them. What a great attitude. Hey, man, because they'll fall behind. They will fall by the wayside. I know of a couple people who were trolling me hard, bloodkin, who have seriously died in the last year. I'm like, wow, where'd they go? And get this, we never had a relationship. I knew who they were, but man, when they saw me on here going viral, they decided they were going to hate my guts. They're no longer among the living. So Charlene Robb, and I did not wish that upon them, and I'm not rejoicing that that happened. I didn't know I knew who they were. We had no relationship. Just keep moving forward. Those who want to remain sticks in the mud, you'll leave them so far behind you'll forget they were ever even there. Okay, now here's our stories. 1. I graduated from high school in 1968. I was still living at home when this happened, so it was sometime around 1970. There was no internet, no cell phones, no remotes for the TV. Boy, those are looking more and more like the good old days every minute, aren't they? Heck, color TV was a big deal for our socioeconomic class. You got a lot in I love that. Whatever. You wait till you read October Nights Part 2. I am not politically correct in that one. So my parents and I were in the living room watching TV one night when the phone rang. Dad went to the kitchen to answer it. He didn't say much except yeah, no, and okay. He hung up and told Mother and me to come with him to our backyard. We jumped up and followed, anxious to see what was going on. We lived in a poorer section of a mid-sized Appalachian city. No wonder. Fellow Appalachian American. The houses were close together. Some were even shotgun houses. When we got out, we looked up and I almost fainted. There was a huge UFO filling a good part of the sky. It was cigar-shaped with several rows of portals all around. As big as it seemed, it was obviously several miles high. This means there was no sound, and that just made what we saw even more surreal. Oh, so several miles up in the sky. Okay, so there was no sound. They couldn't hear it. There were dozens of dots of light starting out from it in all directions. They were obviously smaller controlled vehicles of some sort. I immediately thought of life rafts leaving a sinking ship. And then, suddenly, it exploded. Lights, debris, gaseous clouds all filled the sky without a sound. Remember, this was primitive times. 1970. If you compare the technological advancements that we've gone through since then, those were primitive times. Well, technology like she was seeing in the sky certainly wouldn't have been, wouldn't have existed outside of the military or her story, not mine. Okay. We had no way to record it. Dad wasn't even sure who to call. I think he called the police and maybe the airport. He was told the phones were going crazy with reports of this phenomena, and they were going to investigate. The next morning, local news, paper, TV, and radio was filled with the story. Thousands of people across the region that covered 3 states were upset and reporting sightings of UFOs exploding in the night sky. According to officials, it was only weather balloons exploding over Florida. That will never convince me of that. Florida is a couple of 100 miles away, and the mothership had to be enormously huge. And I have since seen similar reports on YouTube that had supposedly phone camera shots of UFOs of the same shape, for whatever that's worth. It's worth a lot. Making sure I'm not skipping a page here. Charlene, that was worth a lot. That was a great story. And it reminds me of something that happened in 1996. This isn't UFO related. This is Mother Nature related. There was, I think it was 1996. It was back in the 90s. There was a massive power outage in Los Angeles. Many of you might remember this. And the police, 911, the phone started ringing off the hook because all these people were calling because they were saying there were UFOs coming. The world was being taken over. It was like War of the Worlds. You know what it was? It was stars. There's so much artificial light in LA. So many people who had lived there their entire lives had never seen a starry night. But during that power outage, when there was no artificial light blocking the stars, everybody saw the stars and thought it was spaceships coming to get them. Now, I just tell that story because I was reminded of it, but I'm not saying that that's what this lady saw. I mean, if you're in Appalachian, trust me, there's no artificial light in most of Appalachian. As a matter of fact, you can see the state of West Virginia outlined from space at night because that's how little artificial light there is coming from that particular part of Appalachian. Incredible, isn't it? All right, here's another story from Charlene. She says, more recently, about 10 years ago, I had occasion to fly alone to Milwaukee on business. I stayed at a very nice hotel just a few blocks from the lake and the tourist section. In a very modern and stylish lobby, I got on the elevator to go to my room. 9 floors up, I stepped off the elevator and was a little surprised. I have a very good sense of direction in place. It is hard to confuse me about where I am and how to get back to home base. But this time I felt like I had somehow switched buildings. There didn't seem to be enough rooms and the hallway was just too short, and it just looked older. I went on to my room. It was nice enough. The bathroom and closet were at the door, so the sleeping area was at the opposite end of the room and hidden from the entry door by the bathroom wall. I did like that. The exterior wall had a huge window that looked out over the city and a street that intersected the primary boulevard at the corner. There was a smaller side street, almost an alley that ran perpendicular to the side street and dead-ending as a T intersection right under my window. On this corner, there was a rundown bar with all neon signs and dark windows. I am claustrophobic, so I had opened the curtains before I went to sleep that evening, and it sounded like the bar was gearing up for an active night. Well, I left the end of that story down there at the house. It's okay, I read it. Listen, when she woke up the next day, okay, I didn't read it. You know what? We're going to start the next video with part 2 of that one. Now I'm going to go get it and bring it up here and read it. Hold on. Still got my 6. All right, guys. Welcome to a rare glimpse inside my home. That storm's coming and I'm not going back out there. I wasn't going to leave you hanging. I came down here to read you the rest of that story. I thought I'd printed it off. As you can see, in between editing, I'm here on the couch like literally, well, I switch rooms. I'll go outside. I'm doing this so much. I switch places every hour. But I'll edit until the letters are going together and then I'll come over here and paint big letters or whatever, working on my stuff. Again, go to the Etsy store. It's in there. Okay, so she's explaining. Charlene Robinson is telling us about her hotel room. It's nice. She looks out the window. There's like a bar with neon signs. Looks like they're gearing up for a big night, right? Okay, here's the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would say, God rest his soul. A few hours later, I woke up with the full moon shining through the window. It was huge and sitting squarely in the center of the frame. There was a lot of light, like my window. Should have shut the blind. Sorry about that. I got up to pull the shades and was surprised to see the bar was closed. I don't recall the exact time, but I do remember thinking it was too early for an establishment like that to be closed. I lay back down, but before I got back to sleep, I heard canine howling. I live in a rural county in southern Appalachia. I know coyotes, foxes, deer, bobcats, and hound dogs and the sounds they make. This was none of those, and it was close. I was not going back to sleep now, and I heard it again, closer. A few minutes later, I heard the stairway door open and close. Then someone was stopping at every door, pausing for a minute before going to the next. I think I turned to liquid and melted into the mattress when I realized he, she, it, or they was at my door and listening. Finally, it moved on. I thought I heard the elevator open and close, but then I heard the stairway door and the sounds of someone going out it. A few years later, I saw a documentary on the Beast of Bray Street. Could my experience be connected? I researched Bray Street in Elkhorn. I was in Milwaukee. They're over 40 miles apart, but ordinary wolves have territories that cover as much as 100 miles. So you tell me, was it coincidence? A large dog and an unrelated prowler, or was it something else? Thanks for all you do and letting us tell our stories without fear of ridicule. Sharon Robinson. And again, this is why, for now, not forever, but for now, the comments are off. Not until I'm finished with fully editing and doing rewrites and sending October Nights, 31 More Tales for the Halloween Season, Part 2, off to the printer. It's just how it's going to be. I'm sorry. I know a lot of you like to comment. You're constructive. You're positive. But I'm doing this so that you can feel free to send me your stories like this so I can share it with the viewers. Again, eventually the comment section's coming back on because I'm going to have the time to go through there and police the comments, which is we've got almost 300,000 subscribers, and any YouTuber will tell you, you reach a point to where you actually spend more time cleaning the dirty laundry out of your content section than you actually spend creating content. And the question arises, well, why don't you just turn them off and leave it off? Well, because that's part of the experience. A lot of viewers, they've gotten to know each other and they've befriended each other away from YouTube through other means in the comment section by watching the videos. We don't want to stop that and kill that part of the experience. So it's just temporary. So please keep in mind, though, if you are going to send in a story, we'd love to have it. All things paranormal, supernatural, cryptozoological, spiritual, like the story about being visited by Jesus the night before the house burned. Wasn't that an amazing story? So if you have something like that happen to you, how can you not be a believer, right? So anyway, until next time, get my 6.